I would never forgive myself if I didn't ask you this question about Shane Gillis, because
Yes.
you are an artist.
Yes, sir.
You appreciate the importance of creativity, of kind of pushing limits, but you also are an Asian American who probably encountered some prejudice along the way in life. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I was kind of curious how you felt. Like, obviously, Andrew took the high road, and he was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, it's all good."
Yeah.
I was curious, what
Yeah.
what was your thoughts on that?
Man, I have a lot of thoughts, but I think if I could be concise about it, well, I'll say this about Andrew first and his reaction. When he reacted the way he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it spoke volumes about not only just, like this guy is taking the high road, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it spoke volumes about how he wants to present himself as he continues on this path that he's going, as far as just potentially being the leader of the free world, right?
Yeah.
And steering that ship. So I think that people that are offended by his reaction, they have a right to be also, right? The point is, every single person has a right to feel however they want to feel. So for me, right, I noticed that there was a couple of things that unfolded simultaneously. When he came out and decided to take the high road, there was the initial people that are like, nah, man, you can't let that fly. If you take the high road, you're essentially condoning it. And you're essentially saying it's okay to make fun of Asians. And there were people that were offended by that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if they feel that way, more power to them. Because I think that is the main point. We all have a right to feel however we want to feel. Then you had the opposite spectrum, which was people that were like, that's powerful, right? Because I think the main thing to me that I got from Andrew's kind of overall, his response to the situation was that, if I can forgive him, then hopefully this can be a reflection of something that shifts this, quote unquote, cancel culture that we're living in, which is, it's stronger than it's ever been. The whole, like, you say one thing, we're done with you. And that just is across all spectrums, whether it's politics, entertainment, athletes, you could be a restaurant, right? Like if Arby's tweets the wrong thing, people could be like, we're never eating roast beef sandwiches ever again, right? And that's just the day and age we live in. So I hope Arby's they should go back and look at their old tweets, make sure there's nothing offensive. I have nothing against Arby's, but I think what Andrew was saying is that, yeah, like maybe it's time that we obviously we need to be mindful of what it is we forgive and what it is we take the high road on. Because there's some things that, it's not about just taking the high road on, right? But in this case, he's saying, look, I've experienced this even before Shane Gillis. But in this case, Shane Gillis specifically singled me out and called me a chink. And I'm choosing to forgive him. And I hope that this can be a moment where we can all learn from it, right? So more power to Andrew. My point is, I have no qualms with it. Like, I'm not like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like, he's doing that. Now I gotta withdraw my Yang Gang membership. Not at all. However, I'm very respectful of people that might not be as on the same page about his reaction. Now, shifting from Andrew, and you ask me, right?
Yeah.
I think there's another dynamic that I'll throw in there too. So my background is, I'm a hip hop rap artist, and, I've dabbled in acting as well. But even in the last 2-3 years, I've also been exploring stand-up comedy myself. Right. So, really starting from the ground up, like I live in New York. So going to open mics and, really like honing the craft as well as just learning about the art. So I've learned that, and it's an actual thing about punching up, punching down, right? Like, as a comic, essentially you're never supposed to punch down. You're supposed to punch up, right? So you make fun of the establishment. You can make fun of cultural things, but you never punching down is essentially making fun of people that are not in power, so to speak. So in this case, I think I'm not familiar with Shane. Prior to this, I didn't really follow his work. And after this, I also didn't dive any more into his work, right? So more power to Andrew, who's like, I watched 45 minutes of his stuff to get a gauge. I was like, man, I couldn't do that. Like, after that, I was like, yo, more than ever, I'm not going to devote any more time and energy to this, right? But I will say that, unfortunately, what we saw of that situation where he's on his podcast with another, I think, kind of like host, and they're going off their rant, their 3-4 minute rant about, the Chinese restaurants and this and that. Like, first of all, to me, right off the top, it wasn't funny. So that's the bottom line. To me, it wasn't funny, but laughter and humor is subjective too. So my thing is, if it was funny, the sense of humor, Jin, and the lover of expression and comedy and humor, Jin, I would have been the first one to laugh. Like, I probably might have been like, man, that's effed up. You know what I mean? That's effed up. But I also would have been like, oh, man, right? But the point is what they were saying. It just wasn't funny to me. So right off the top, that was my personal reaction to it. As far as like, oh, Jin, do you forgive him? If Andrew forgives him? I just say I couldn't forgive him because I never took it that serious. Like, I never was that offended. I feel like sometimes, like, we give too much power to these people too. You know what I mean? Because it became this national, CNN covered it and Fox, and rightfully so, because it ties into different sectors, right? It ties into the fact that Andrew's involved and Andrew's running for president. But the point is, if Andrew wasn't running for president, it wouldn't have been a CNN matter. You know what I mean? So my thing is just sometimes we give a lot more attention and power and focus to things than they really deserve or would have gotten just on its own merit. That's my thing. So it's like there were people that were really riled up about it, writing essays, and hey, more power to them too. But to me, it was like, oh, this happened. Cool. This is what Andrew's take is. This is what this guy's take is. He's not apologizing and he's doubling down, or he's giving some half-ass apology. All right, cool, whatever. Because I just feel like we need to be very conscious of what we devote our time and energy to. That's all I'm saying.
So when you heard that he was let go from the cast, how did you feel? Did you think like that was the right thing?
I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel bad for him, and maybe that's because I don't know him personally. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like. I'm sure that it wasn't easy to land the gig. I know that much, but I didn't feel bad, and I didn't. You know what I mean? Like, worse things are happening to people in this world. That's my point. You know what I mean? And I think even if we remove the whole cancel culture thing aside, everybody is responsible for what they say and what they do. So, and times change. Like, I mean, there you go again. I mean, Andrew was the first one to say he doesn't think that the guy should have gotten fired. If you ask me, it wouldn't have been a game changer to me if he got fired or didn't get fired. Because in this case where he did get fired, does that mean that people are going to stop being reckless and kind of punching down on Asians and in their sets? And it's not, you know what I mean? Like, so there is one thing though, like, I feel that, I mean, the people that do know Jin and have been following my career, they know that, I have always been someone who, does find interest in these type of matters because, I think that speaking out is important, right? So for example, I have a son now and or two, I have little boys, we have kids. I think that really shifts my mindset too, because whereas back in the days, I might not think too much about what does this mean for the future generations and next generations. Having kids, it'll definitely open your eyes to that. So in the sense of like, did it warrant all that uproar and people like tweeting and hashtag, cancel SNL, cancel Shane or whatever? Like, I'm not saying that all of that was unwarranted either. You know what I mean? Like, I'm saying, hey, express yourself however you want to. But on all parties involved, we all need to kind of take stake in what it is that we're saying and doing, right? So maybe he didn't realize, well, if anything, if Shane learns to learn a lesson there, or anybody watching this learn a lesson there, and that is, hey, Asians aren't really the ones to be picking on now because this type of stuff can happen. There can be backlash. Then I applaud to that too. Like, I'm not mad at that at all. I mean, because essentially 10, 15 years ago, in some sense, that's what I was trying to do anyways, right? Like, as far as, when I go into a rap battle, even though I didn't come into the rap battle like, hey, I'm here to represent all Asians with my rhymes, right? But just by default, because the first thing my opponent would say to me is, you're a rookie. Keep making fortune cookies. Like, by default, I'm in the line of fire. And every Asian person that's watching that is like, all right, what are you going to do, Jin? But the good thing for me, and I always say that this is good for me, is that at that point, my laser sharp focus was really just being a dope MC. You know what I mean? So I wasn't thinking too much about what does this mean for the gajillion Asian people that are watching this. I'm just thinking, oh, that's what you want to do? All right, well, then I come back with my witty rhymes and, I'm not always victorious, but when I am victorious and it is a moment where other Asians, kids, people of my age, older than me, they watch it and they're like, that's empowering, Jin. I never realized that. I'm saying, like, this is just me sharing. I never realized that as it was unfolding. I'm talking about something that happened like close to 20 years ago. But here I am now, even at the rally in LA, or the event. And people are like, Jin, I've been watching you since then. Some of these people, they might only just know you through your 8 Mile Yang rap, but quiet as kept. I remember I was in the 8th grade when you showed up at the rap battle every week. And, when you were like, my pants are new, my sweater is new, you're just mad this Chinese kid dressed better than you. Like, man, I was going crazy in my, and I'm like, really? Like, it's humbling, encouraging, and it's definitely rewarding for me, to know that now, like, so many years removed from it. So.
Yeah, well, in a lot of ways, it's rare still to this day to see Asian male characters that are strong, independent, fierce, courageous, and they're not getting like pushed around, right?
Yeah. And I think that, the point is there's nothing wrong with, all the ones that you just described, not as far as like getting pushed around, but there's nothing wrong with the Asian guy that isn't like all muscular and like, there's nothing wrong with the nerdy Asian guy. That's what I want to think is also important. Whereas the stereotype would be like, yeah, Asian guys are nerdy and, they play violin and things like that. So this is cool to talk about on Nerds for Yang, specifically as it pertains to the Asian American experience, specifically the male experience, because we're both male. So I guess we can't speak about any other experience other than that, right? But I think that the point is to just find confidence in yourself and your identity without having to seek it from the masses and just outwardly. Like, I think the point is, if you are, this is why I love Nerds for Yang, I guess, right? Like, if you are nerdy, I have more respect for someone that's actually nerdy, or I want to be nerdy. I actually think I'm pretty nerdy. Like, exterior wise, people might not see it because I'm, the the hip hop guy, but I'm about as nerdy as it comes if you really strip it down. But my point is, and I want to close on this, and then and thank you again for having me, Tom. But even to some of the people that are like, maybe not as fond of the way Andrew carries himself, specifically, let's say within the Asian community, that are like, man, some of the things that he says and the way he chooses to approach his platform and then the math hat, it's a little counterproductive and it's setting the community back. I just really, really want us all to take a moment and look at that and dissect it. I don't know if there's any sense in saying that an Asian man that is basically throwing his whole life into the game and aspiring to run the country. I just don't know how you can say that action is setting anybody back. You know what I mean? Okay, you might not agree with the wording and how he approaches it, but I just don't think there's any sense in saying someone taking that step is setting anybody back, right? Because to me, we don't know how far it'll go, but I would say at this time, man, it's already pretty amazing what he's been able to do as far as impacting, like, not just the election, but culturally, and it's still an uphill battle. We know even in real time right now, the major platforms still really don't want to acknowledge him yet. No. But it's sort of like you can't not acknowledge him because the movement is too crazy, like, so I think it'll be exciting and fun for the Yang Gang and the country, right? If we continue to go in the direction that we're going in right now.
It also kind of helps demonstrate some of the diversity of the Asian American community, that everybody has like a different point of view. And for some people, the self-deprecating jokes are like way off limits. And for other people, they're like, yeah, he's owning it. He's actually like turning it around. And, I'm kind of in the middle on that. So
Because
Yeah,
it's not a, I think this is the word. I'm Googling the word right now to make sure I'm using it right. I learned this word recently. It's not a monolith. I think that is the word.
yes,
I'm literally searching
it's
it.
not monolithic.
A
And it's
large,
not a monolith.
a large and impersonal political, corporate, or social structure regarded as intractably indivisible and uniform. Yes, it's not a monolith. That's what I'm
No.
trying to say. We
Yeah,
are
no.
definitely not a monolith. So,
We
so there are nerds. So this will be my final closing statement. Again, thank you, Tom. Just know, as far as Asians go, they are nerds. There's MMA fighters. There's NBA basketball players. There's hip hop rappers. There's emo guitar
doctors.
players. There's chefs. Yeah, there's any and every possible shape or form you can think of. I think that's the goal, is to show that it's not a monolith and there's nothing wrong with being any one of those. So nerds for Yang.
That's, at the end of the day, all that matters is that we help solve the country's problems together.
Absolutely.
With all people
yes.
from all backgrounds. And
Yes.
we focus on solutions that are brought by a very, very special, truly gifted leader like Andrew.
Yes.
And as part of this movement, we all will help make it happen.